Welcome to The Record Show, your virtual spin around the vinyl industry. Brought to you by Radio Wasteland Records. Yes, Midland has a record store. Here's your host, Jim Gleason.
Greetings from the Wasteland and welcome to this newest edition of The Record Show. As always, we've got a great one headed your way today. We'll check in with Ken from Ingram and get caught up on all of this week's and next week's new releases. And I've got a little bit of an editorial on a not so cool move on the part of RSD and a certain record label. Before we get to the good stuff though, I'd like to ask, if you have not done so yet, please hit that subscribe button and feel free to comment. Let us know how we are doing here with The Record Show. Well, our guest today is a special one. She has been a rock and roll legend for over 50 years. Joining us now on The Record Show is someone who's not only a Michigan rock and roll legend, but dare I say an international rock and roll legend. I'd like to welcome to The Record Show, Suzi Quatro. Suzi, thank you very much for joining us today.
It is my pleasure. And I'd like you to know that I stopped rehearsing. I was in my front room with my bass, with the carpet rolled up, going back and forth as if I'm on the stage. You have to see it to believe it. If anybody walks by, they'll look at it and they'll say, Suzi Quatro is there. She's lost it.
I don't think so at all. You know, you got to stay on top of that with those skills, correct?
You really do. Yeah, you do.
Well, we're gonna get to your releases. You just released your 17th studio album, Devil in Me, very recently. You had a record store day release, and I'd like to get onto those in a little bit. But first, I'd like to back way up, if I could, to talk a little bit about your beginnings here in Michigan. And you were part of just a really burgeoning rock and roll scene in the late 60s and early 70s, really kind of working alongside and working to, break out with groups like Nugent and Cooper and a whole host of other acts that came from this area at that time. Could you recount your beginnings a little bit? Tell us how you got started and what was it like in that era with these bands and with what you were doing?
Well, I started in 64. I was only 14, I'm very young. I'm now 58 years in the business. Unbelievable. So I was young. And when I first began, the other bands that you just mentioned, they weren't colleagues of mine, but they were bands I saw play, And then by the time I was 16, and we had been playing for a bit, then we started to do all the same gigs together. We're all old friends. Mitch Ryder, Ted, my God, my brother used to book him. Alice and I, it's well documented. We have a serious friendship since I was 15, goes on today. Mitch Ryder, great band, great, one of the best drummers ever. Bob Seger, who actually supported the Pleasure Seekers, my first band. I think it was at the Crow's Nest, And he came in, I never forget it. He came in with his acoustic guitar at a rock and roll gig, sat on the stage and played all original material. And I just was watching. Wow. I was watching him and I was watching, first of all, going, what's he doing? And then within about 5 minutes, I was going, wow. So anyway, they soon became all our colleagues, and on we went. Whenever I get together with any of the Detroit people, we talk at length about Detroit, because it has a special, God, without getting too boring about it. Detroit has an edge. It has a black and white communion. Always has. We get along. We always have. You've got the mixture between the Motown and then the white rock and the this and the that. And I know that's politically incorrect, but I don't care. Musically speaking, I think it's one of the best cities in the world. And the last track on my current album, I know you're getting to it later, but just because I was just rehearsing it, Motor City Riders, that's the track. That is about my hometown. And when I wrote that with my son, I sat and I did those lyrics. I don't usually work so hard on lyrics, but that one had a place in my heart, and I wanted it to represent exactly what it was like being a 60s teenager in Detroit. And I think I accomplished that.
It is a great album. We're going to talk a little bit more about that in a second or two. You mentioned the Pleasure Seekers, and at a time when all of these acts were kind of coming forward you and that group, your family members included, really kind of took a different tack in that effort to make a name for yourselves. How was that different in that era for you, being a part of that band and then moving on to Cradle and then ultimately to solo work?
Well, when we started off, so it was 1964, and we were all girls, which automatically was different. And by the way, I don't do gender. I didn't care if it was monkeys in the band. I really didn't care. But anyway, we were an all-girl band because my sister wanted an all-girl band. And the Pleasure Seekers became very quickly, I don't even know if it was on purpose. It just morphed into that. We became a very, very, very good show band. Um, we had costumes. We would change instruments mid-song. We do a Motown set. We do a British Invasion set. We do a Top 40 set. We do a Stone set. We do a Sgt. Pepper set. Incredible. So we were a show band, and we were different than all the other acts at the time because it was all, especially in the 66, 67, 68, 67, 68, it started to become festivals, and that was not who we were. And I tell the story in my documentary, Suzi Q, about how we went up to do one of my brother's festivals as the show band Pleasure Seekers. And we were used to just storming the place, and we didn't do well. And so it was that point that we decided a change was in order. And I would take a step back and not be the complete front person, give my little sister a chance. She came and knew. She was more of that jamming era. And we became heavier, lasted about 18 months, did all our own songs, jammed a lot. I did about 5 songs a night on vocals, as opposed to being 99.99% of all the songs. So that gave me, that little 18 months gave me the space to become really good on my bass. That's what I did.
And at that point too, you began to break off solo, and you took I mentioned a different tack from a lot of Michigan artists at that time. You took your work overseas. Tell me a little bit about the decision to do that. Was it difficult? But ultimately, I think it's what really helped cement you as a phenomenal solo artist.
I'm not the only one. I mean, Jimi Hendrix did it.
Yep.
God, who else was there now? There was a few came over here, got discovered here it just happened. As I said, the Cradle wasn't really my band. And I've said this to my sisters many times. It's not a big secret. I wasn't really as happy in Cradle as I had been in the Pleasure Seekers. Obviously, I'm never, ever going to be just a bass player. That's not who I am. But Elektra Records came to see Cradle in Detroit, and they didn't want the band at all. And they offered me a solo contract. And the president, Jack Holtzman, told me he would take me to New York and form a male band around me and make me into the next Janis Joplin. That very same week, as fate decrees, Mickey Most flew over from England with Jeff Beck and Cozy Powell. They were recording at Motown. He saw the band, same week. He didn't like the band. Again, you got to listen to it when this happens twice in 1 week. And he said, I want you only. I'd like you to come to England. I'll get a male band around you. We'll make a record, and I'll make you into the first Suzi Quatro. So emotionally, very hard, but business-wise, it really was kind of a no-brainer. I had to go. That was my chance, and you don't turn that down. You don't turn that down.
And that really, as I said, it helped really cement you as an artist. You didn't want to be the next Janis Joplin. You became, as you mentioned, the first Suzi Quatro. Well, now the next step in this entire, we'll call it a saga at this point, is Leather Tuscadero. Can I go there and talk about how that happened and what that meant to you as far as really kind of a rediscovery, if you will, back in the States?
Well, I was on my first hit in 73 all around the world. Started to tour America again with my UK band in 74. We played everywhere. Did the big Alice Cooper, Welcome to My Nightmare 75. I was very well known in America. The singles missed America, as they all did, 73, 74. Nobody that was having hits all around the world was having them in America. I don't know why. You just missed out on that whole era. Anyway, I was there. I was known. I was selling records. I was on tour. I toured Japan every year from 74 onwards. 77, I was there on tour. And my publicist, Toby Mamis, who now works for Alice Cooper, he called me and he said that there was this show called Happy Days, and they wanted me to fly over and audition. Apparently, they had the script for a long time, 6 months maybe, and they couldn't find what they were looking for. They knew what they were looking for. They couldn't find it. And the casting directors, she's Gary Marshall's sister, bless him. Hi, Gary. He appeared on my documentary before it passed away. She saw a collage of the Rolling Stone covers on her daughter's wall. And my cover was on there. And she said, "Who's that? That's who we want." And her daughter said, "That's Suzi Quatro." So, then they find me. I flew over. I auditioned. It turned into 3 seasons. A decision I took. I knew I could act. And I thought to myself, when I'd met everybody and I saw what kind of show it was, I thought, okay, yeah, I can do this.
And you really got to perform as Leather Tuscadero, but really as Suzi Quatro.
Well, it was both. I was acting a role. I was a thief in school. It was acting, but I got to use a lot of my persona in there. Sure. And I think America really discovered Suzi Quatro through Leather Tuscadero, which is completely backwards. Everywhere else in the world, they say to me, "Didn't you act on a TV show?" And in America, they go, "Leather Tuscadero." Okay. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. You got there in the end. However you found me, you found me.
And that's great. You're still making music today, which is the coolest thing ever. Which gets me to this next thing. You back in March released your 17th album, studio album, The Devil in Me. And I'll tell you what, this thing rocks. I'm not kissing up here. This does rock indeed. What does it take to keep making music like this after these years and want to put that and drive you to put stuff like this out?
Well, I wish I could say at the age of 71 that I've matured. I have not. I think I will die with the fire in my belly. I think that's just me. And by the way, that's Detroit as well. I have a need to create. A need. That's a big word. I have a need to communicate. I have a need to entertain. And I will keep doing it until I'm 6 foot under. I still love, every time I go on stage, it's like the first gig all over again. But this album, I have heard from every critic all over the world. It's my best work. It's fantastic.
Yep. Tell me a little bit more about the cut, the Motor City Riders. You'd mentioned that is really kind of an homage to Detroit, your beginnings. What's into this song for you?
It talks about that whole time when the riots were happening and, everybody was scared. We're watching it on TV. There's machine guns across the street and very unrest. It says it in the words, "We're going out of town. We're looking up on the bridge. There's people on the bridge. We're going to our gig in Buffalo." The whole car full of people. I'll never forget it. But it's also saying in the chorus, "Motor City Riders, invincible survivors, taking every fighter to the wall. Motor City Riders, unshakable survivors, knocking down dividers, standing tall." There you go. God, I just
That's
recited
amazing.
the whole area. Okay.
You did. There you go. Now, very recently, you were included into the Record Store Day, which is a phenomenal event for stores like ours. We are very thankful for the artists that allow their works to be used. But you had a live and kickin' release come out for Record Store Day, and this was a 1977 concert from Japan. How did these discussions go when you were approached by either the label or your management saying, "Hey, this Record Store Day thing, we'd like you to be a part of that"?
Oh God, yeah, sure, be a part of it. Okay, anything that gets you out there, fine. And that live and kicking is pretty good. And I insisted on it being recorded, beginning to end of the concert with no cuts, just concert, beginning to end, and it rocks.
It does. Oh yeah, we cracked one open and we're giving it a spin here. So, well, you had mentioned rehearsing back and forth, so that means that there's going to be some performances coming up now that things are getting back to an, well, air quote, normal here.
Sure. We had the first one June the 12th at the showground here in Peterborough. That was great. Only half the people could come in at tables, as is the rule, and they could stand up but stay up the seat. But now things are starting to loosen up. I hope. I know it's looser in America, but who knows what's going to happen? All those people, could start the whole thing again. My diary is full from September onwards. Fingers crossed. I'm keeping my chops in. I'm doing my show in the front room. Got to do it. You got to do it.
And as I said, you're gonna hold that guitar and keep making music as long as possible, correct?
Absolutely. I'm not done yet.
Great. Well, I'd like once again to thank Suzi Quatro for taking the time to chat with us today. Best of luck with the new album. Best of luck getting back out there. And as always, thank you so much for making the music and making Michigan artists proud.
And thank you. Thanks a lot.
And a big thank you once again to Suzi Quatro for taking the time to talk with us today. We will have an extended version of her interview. We'll put the whole thing up a little bit later on tonight or tomorrow. So be sure you look for that here on the Radio Wasteland Records YouTube channel. Be sure to hit that subscribe button, by the way, so you'll know when it comes up. In the meantime, though, you can pick up Suzi's latest album, The Devil in Me, at fine independent record stores near you. It is a double LP, just a great, great, great rock and roll record. Lots of great rock and roll music on this, including The Devil in Me, Hey Queenie, and the one we mentioned, Motor City Riders. So pick up Suzi's latest LP, The Devil in Me. And also, even though it was a limited time only, you can probably still find a few copies floating around of her Record Store Day release, Live and Kickin', recorded in Japan in 1977. Again, a double LP on this one as well, and it comes on really, really cool looking white vinyl. Joining us now on the Record Show, Ken Norton from Ingram Entertainment to get us caught up on all of this week's new releases, headed to an indie record store near you. Hey, Ken, how's it going?
Hey, good. How you doing, Joe?
Good, thanks. We're still kind of catching up from RSD, that post-RSD fun. Woo!
Yeah.
So,
it's exciting stuff. I'm sure it was wild up in there. I saw the line. I saw the picture of the line online there.
It
Nice.
was, and it was a great day. We always have fun doing it, but holy cow, it's a lot of work.
It's a lot of work, yeah.
As you know.
Congratulations for living through it and
Thanks,
making a
you
lot of
too.
people happy.
Well, speaking of making people happy, what do we have this week on our plates?
Well, we actually have several things this week, even though it's after Record Store Day. People still want to go to the store for these, I think. The band Cinderella, their best-selling and debut album, Night Songs, is being reissued on a couple of different color vinyl. One's violet and the other red. Those are 180 gram, so it should sound good. There's a record called Early Dolly Parton recordings from when she was 13 years old. And these are on pink or gold vinyl. I think that's a random.
That would be very early Dolly, wouldn't it?
It's very early.
Wow.
But, fans would be interested, I'm sure. Speaking of Nashville, Taylor Swift, Folklore, her most recent record, is now officially on vinyl. It's on beige vinyl, comes out this Friday. And a lot of people have been waiting for those. A couple of cool soundtrack issues, only for brick and mortar retail. You won't find these on online unless it's from a brick and mortar record store in the first place. And that's Dazed and Confused. It's on clear vinyl. And so also on clear vinyl is Quentin Tarantino's Inglourious Bastards on clear vinyl.
That's quite the pair. All right.
Yeah. And also on the soundtrack, The Empire Strikes Back, the John Williams score. It's coming out on 180 gram vinyl. It should sound very good. It's a gatefold package too. So it's a nice looking collectible thing for the Star Wars fans. And last but not least, a Descendants record called Ninth and Walnut. There's an indie exclusive version of this on green vinyl. And
used to love playing those guys back in my college radio days.
Yeah, they're a lot of fun. Milo and the gang, right?
Yep. Till he went to college, that is.
Until he tried to grow up. I don't know how successful that was. So, and then the McCartney, it's called, let's see, I had this one over here, McCartney 3 Imagined. It's a reimagination of his most recent album, the one that came out just around Christmas. This sort of remixed and sort of doctored up by a lot of sort of primarily indie artists you'd know the names of, like St. Vincent, Phoebe Bridgers, Damon Albarn, Beck, Krungbin. Really pretty cool. And that's coming out this Friday as well.
Sounds very, very interesting. Well, looking ahead also, very quickly, if we could, to July 30th, there's a couple of big ones that I made note of. That Billie Eilish, Happier Than Ever. A lot of folks been waiting on that one. That's set to drop in a week plus on July 30th.
That's right. Her new studio album, long anticipated.
Then one I wanted to make mention of, simply because I know whenever the Prince estate releases a bunch of, or puts out a release, there's a bunch of different variations of that. And that is the Welcome to America. I think that's getting that same treatment where you're going to have a big box set and then smaller tiers of things available. So wanted to mention that if anybody is looking for those bigger ones, especially for smaller stores like ours, you might want to contact the stores and let them know that you're interested in it this week, so you're ready for next.
Yeah, absolutely. Good idea. That's a very interesting record. It was something he recorded as an album, shelved, never put out, and the estate has decided to put it out. I've heard the single from it. It's outstanding, really great Prince stuff from the more latter part of his career, but fans are definitely going to want that.
And that is, again, coming out on July 30th. So contact your stores this week and let them know. All right, Ken, well, thank you very much for taking the time to chat with us today. And we'll probably talk in a couple of weeks. I think you're going to be busy next week, you mentioned. So we'll handle it. We'll handle it on our end. How's that?
Next week. Yeah, great. I enjoyed it. Good to see you.
Have a good couple of weeks, sir. Thanks.
Thanks. You too.
And finally today, if I could, I'd like to end with a little editorial note on a recent Record Store Day drop number 2 release. Back on July 17th, a label called Allman Brothers Band Recording Company released the album Allman Brothers Band The Final Note. Now, this was a limited edition, numbered, and colored vinyl Record Store Day release. All of that was described on the Record Store Day website. What they failed to mention, however, was something we noticed on Record Store Day itself when we looked at the back of the album cover. Very clearly stated, it says, "For your consideration, please understand that this recording was made almost 50 years ago on a handheld cassette recorder. It is, however, an incredibly important piece of Allman Brothers Band history. We ask you to listen accordingly and appreciate the fact that you can experience Duane Allman's final show." How cool is that? Well, if you're a big Allman Brothers fan, that's very, very cool. But working here at the store and reading some comments online, one of the biggest complaints that I hear about Record Store Day releases are the fact that, oh, hey, they're just trying to grab as much money as they can. In this case, I'm going to have to agree with that. Record Store Day did not mention in their description that this was a cassette recording, a bootleg, if you will, but being released officially. That would have been some good information to know. Like I said, if you're a hardcore Allman Brothers fan, then you will want this in your collection. But if you're new to vinyl and you're thinking that this might be a cool pickup, you'll be disappointed. In fact, I'm starting to hear and see some posts complaining about the sound quality on this, and that's why I think they included that disclaimer on the back. In the future, it would be very nice to know, I'm speaking as a record store owner, but also as a vinyl collector, to know ahead of time that we're getting something with very poor sound quality. That way, the record collector or the buyer can make up their mind whether or not they want something like this in their collection. But if they keep pulling stuff like this, it's going to be very, very hard to escape that notion that a lot of these Record Store Day releases are just a money grab. Thanks for watching The Record Show. If you haven't done so yet, please make sure to subscribe to the Radio Wasteland Records YouTube channel. And be sure to hit that notifications bell so you'll be alerted every time we upload new content.